Hi, in today's Money Not Math conversation, I'm going to be reviewing an article that I wrote for my clients last week regarding the short and long-term effects of the government stimulus bill. Before I get into that, I just want to wish everyone well when it comes to not only their health, but also their financial well-being. I know a lot of people are struggling right now with losing their jobs or their jobs being decreased in hours and whatever that may be. Just know there's resources out there, whether it's applying for unemployment, or filing for SPA business loans, or even there's some grant options out there which you don't have to pay back grants if they're approved correctly or and used in the right ways. So that's huge. So there's different resources out there. Hopefully you can find the right ones for you. I know I was talking to someone the other day about options as far as creating quick cash flow. And I think one thing that I've thought of, and I know I've mentioned to people in the past, is banks really like to lend money to people who don't need it. So when we're not in a time of uncertainty like we are right now, but let's say 2 months ago, if you have a lot of equity in your home, it's a great option to open a home equity line of credit, and then you don't have to use it. Just leave it open. And that way, when it's open and times like this happen with coronavirus and unexpected life events, you can then utilize that as a backup to your hopefully built emergency fund, right? In a perfect world, everyone has a 3 to 6 months expenses saved up in their emergency fund. But we don't live in a perfect world. So that's one great option, is to have a home equity line of credit. And the other option would be to remortgage your house to pull the equity out of your home, because as we all know, equity is not really that liquid and appreciation doesn't spend, right? So it's just, these are some options to consider. I'm not saying they're right or wrong for everyone, just things to consider. And if you work with a bank that really likes you and you have great history, they might still be willing to do those things with you right now if you're short on cash and need some liquidity. So just some things to consider. Now getting into the conversation, I'm going to share my screen with you so that for those of you who are watching this conversation, you can follow along, because I know that there's going to be a lot of math and examples or statistics used. Not statistics, sorry, math and numbers. For those of you listening to the podcast, I apologize for all the in-depth analysis, but I hope you're able to follow along. And if it's tough, I recommend and encourage you check out one of my, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google business page, one of those areas to find the video to watch. So the conversation today is, like I said, around the short and long-term effects of a $2 trillion stimulus bill from the government. And I wrote this last week before it was approved. So as we know, that's been up to $2.2 trillion. And in reality, it's actually kind of closer to $6 trillion, depending on how you look at it, due to the Federal Reserve lending that's been allowed by this bill. All right, so I'm going to read it word for word while adding things along the way, because I think there's points to that are important to emphasize on, and important points to adjust on, because of the fact that we know that when I wrote this, it was hypothetical, and now that it actually has happened, it's good to touch upon some things. So here we go. The short and long-term effects of a $2 trillion stimulus bill to help Americans through the COVID-19 chaos. In the short term, I too agree that the stimulus bill that the United States government is trying to provide, or has provided in this case, the American people, is necessary to avoid a recession and personal financial stress for millions of Americans. I think I heard today like almost 10 million people filed for unemployment in the last week, which is absolutely unheard of. So it's just crazy. However, in the long term, I believe it is essential for hardworking Americans to understand the effects this bill could have on their retirement planning. To put my message in context, below is a screenshot of the U.S. debt clock from March 25th, 2020 at 11:26 a.m. And here is the link to the U.S. debt clock, because I'm confident it will have rapidly changed from when I wrote this message to the time you read it. So just to flip over to the live U.S. debt clock, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but open it up here. You can find the U.S. debt clock at usdebtclock.org. So here's a live snapshot of the current U.S. debt and all of its spending and things like that. We're not going to go over all the numbers. But live, just to highlight one to show the contrast that can happen in a week. Currently, our U.S. national debt is about $23.7 trillion. When I wrote this article on March 25th, it was $23.6 trillion. So we've gone up $100 billion in debt, or $0.1 trillion, in a matter of a week. So that just puts things into perspective. But I know there's a lot of numbers here, so I'm just going to highlight a few of the ones I'll be talking about today and using for my example. The U.S. national debt, which is defined as the national public debt outstanding, represents the face amount or principal amount of marketable and non-marketable securities currently outstanding, is equal to about $23.6 trillion as of March 25th. The U.S. federal spending official, defined as the total amount of dollars appropriated and spent by the United States Congress and approved by the President each year, is equal to about $4.69 trillion this year. The U.S. federal tax revenue, which is defined as U.S. federal tax revenue consists of the income tax, payroll tax, corporate tax, and duties and excise taxes, is equal to about $3.42 trillion. The U.S. federal budget deficit official, which is defined as the difference between the total amount spent by Congress and the revenue received by the Internal Revenue Service, is equal to about negative $1.2 trillion. Now, these numbers are huge, and in many cases, they're impossible to fathom because most people watching this probably aren't billionaires, and being a billionaire is far off from being a trillionaire, right? So it's a lot of money. So let's try to put this into some context. Oh, one more stat before I do. The government is set to pay out, or as we know, they are paying out $2.2 trillion in a stimulus bill to help American companies and workers with their finances due to the COVID-19 chaos. All right, so here's the example. Now that we have highlighted the above numbers regarding our United States government, I'm going to take away 7 zeros from those numbers to relate them to a family household. In other words, $3.42 trillion is going to equal $342,000 in our example. And if a family household for the Joneses is going to be the example of the family, or business ran its budget like the United States government does, it would look sort of like this. The Joneses make about $342,000 per year of income. The Joneses spend are on pace this year to spend $469,000 on their life to live. So they make $342,000 and they spend $469,000. Therefore, the Joneses are on pace to go into $127,000 more debt this year, with $2.36 million of debt already on the table. But the Joneses don't stop there. Due to unforeseen medical events, the Joneses have discovered they will have to take on $200,000 more debt this year to help pay for medical costs, making the total debt they take on this year equal to $127,000 from their spending to income deficit planned, plus $200,000 unplanned for the medical crisis, which is equal to $327,000 this year, on top of the $2.36 million of debt they already have, making this year's financials look like this: $342,000 per year of income minus $669,000 of expenses, with $2.36 million of debt already owed. Let that digest for a moment. The Joneses' current financial plan is to make $342,000 this year, spend $669,000 this year, with $2.3 million of debt already owed. So when we put those numbers back into the U.S. government, they're on pace to make $3.42 trillion, spend $6.69 trillion, and they already have, wait, did I say that right? Yeah, and they already have, sorry, I correct myself, already have $23.3 trillion of debt. So when we think about that and we let that digest, this doesn't include the interest on the debt, right? Because their debt has interest on it. It's not just free debt, or the other factors surrounding the debt the Joneses or U.S. government owe. Keep in mind, I'm not including all 100 variables that could possibly be argued in this example. I'm just trying to put this into context for us to try to understand a little bit regarding the future financial situation of our country. Keep in mind, I'm not saying our country's going anywhere, like it's gonna, like a business would go solvent, because I don't foresee how that would work. I don't think another country's just going to buy us out. But it is important to understand the cards we're currently playing with. So, taking all this into consideration, do you believe the government will need more money in the future? If they need more money in the future, do you think they will need a lot more? And if they need a lot more money in the future, where do you think they're going to get that money? Now, before I continue on with the story, from my understanding, there's basically three areas that our government can get money. One, taxes. Two, they can sell bonds, but those bonds have to be bought by someone. They can't just sell them to no one. So who's going to buy a bond right now, considering most countries are struggling and most bonds are sold to other countries? There might be individual investors buying bonds, but just keep that in mind. And three, they can print money. But printing money causes inflation, which makes our money that we already have worth less. For every dollar printed, the dollars we already have are worth less. That's how inflation works. And that's why everything today costs more, or not everything. That's why a loaf of bread today costs more than a loaf of bread 20 years ago, right? So I'm not going to go deep into inflation, but that generally it deteriorates our current buying power. So if they have to raise taxes, where does those taxes come from? Where does that revenue come from when it comes to taxes? From us, hardworking taxpayers. So what do you think will happen to tax rates in the future? I don't write this with the intention of scaring you. My intention is to inform you so that you can make the best possible decisions for your financial future regarding where you put your money today to grow and protect it for your future. Because what's extremely, extremely important for anyone and everyone planning for their financial future, where you put your money today drastically affects how you can use it in the future, and you deserve the opportunity to understand what all of your options are. Please don't hesitate to reach out with comments, questions, corrections, or concerns, because I know I'm not an expert in all things economics. As always, or the way our government works, as always, I'm here to help and have not stopped scheduling online virtual meetings. So please don't hesitate to let me know if there's something I can do for you or someone you care about. Thank you to my team at Solid Rock Financial, and specifically my colleagues Ross Welty and Paul Swift, for outlining this idea to me and inspiring me to investigate and write it down as an example that's understandable for both myself, my clients, and those of you who took the time to watch and listen to this conversation. I hope this brought you value. I hope, just like all of my conversations, they bring you value that will allow you to have a better financial future. Thanks for taking the time to have a conversation, and please don't hesitate to let me know what you think by commenting, reaching out, or better yet, sharing with a friend who you think might enjoy the video as well. Thanks again, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.